Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at msdynamicsworld.com. If you've been following the landscape of virtual events in the Microsoft Business Applications space since the pandemic started, you may have heard of DynamicsCon. They had their inaugural event in the fall of 2020, and they are moving on to their next event in March 2021. MSDW is a media sponsor of the event, and we wanted to catch up with organizer John Stipula to learn more about the plans for the 2021 event, or I should say the first 2021 event in March, learn where the organization has been, where it's going, how the event itself is changing and evolving over time, and what the future of both the event and the organization behind it, Dynamics User, looks like. John is also the president of a Microsoft partner organization, Dynamic Consulting, so we also dive into some of the things John is seeing in the business landscape these days, from Dynamics 365 apps to a Power Platform and even some augmented reality topics. All right. Well, John Stipula, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Jason.
So I know you've been quite busy with the planning and organization and everything else that goes into a big event, DynamicsCon 2021, or maybe March 2021 is the one we're talking about here, and it's coming up pretty fast. How's it going so far?
Amazing. It's surprising and scary all at once. I think it's been, we had our first DynamicsCon last fall, and we kind of knew we wanted to do it again. Obviously, we were targeting kind of 2 a year, and we just threw a date out there. It's been really interesting to plan an event across the holidays. I think most of the time that I've done events in the summer or the fall, planning across the holidays was interesting, and trying to get people engaged in submitting sessions on December 25th was something. But yeah, generally speaking, now that we're past that and into the new year, the attention and the social activity and the emails and everything have just they're extremely encouraging, and it's definitely been a lot of fun, to say the least.
Yeah, sort of in full swing. I think that people do tend to think about events in the sort of fall and spring timeframes. So I think, with spring coming up, people do have their mind on it, especially presenters. I mean, 400 plus session submissions for the March event, right? And
463 or something. I mean, it just blows my mind. That's actually one of the most impressive things, is the session submission volume for DynamicsCon has just been unbelievable. And the creativity. I mean, geez, our community is so creative. It's amazing, the sessions and the ideas people are having for doing sessions, the ideas they're having in ways to present the content uniquely and in different languages. And just, I've been, it has been exhausting, but it really is. And I know it sounds so cliche, but it's been very energizing when you see how excited other people are to share and network and collaborate together. That's been just out of this world.
Yeah, I should mention, I know a little bit more about what's gone into the planning already, just because I'm a member of the advisory group behind the DynamicsCon event. It's about 10 or 12 people. I might have that number wrong. Very different backgrounds, different roles and organizations that they come from. So I've definitely seen a little bit of the what's gone into the planning, but certainly I wouldn't say anything that's really all that insider knowledge, really. And one of the reasons for that is because I think you've made it a priority to be very open about what really goes into everything in the event, from the selection process of the sessions, which is really winding down as we sort of record this, and probably will be closed right around the time this actually publishes, and then the that and sort of the structure of the event and even the financials of the event. I mean, you were one of this is pretty much your vision from the start, right? And those were some of the, as I understood it, those were some of the things that really drove you to sort of define this event.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and thank you also for helping with the community and planning and your perspective, as we're trying to get outside of an echo chamber and try to listen to our community. And your journalism and your site and your podcasts are all have a reach and a perspective into our community that I think is really unique. So thank you for your help. But I think when we partnered with Eric, when Jake and I partnered with Eric Ernst on the dynamicsusers.net site, and then started rolling out meetups, didn't really know how it all worked together. This was 2016, 2017, not quite sure how to build a free community. But I think the idea, I started seeing podcasts or webcasts and webinars kind of popping up and seeing that people continued to want more content. I was surprised. I actually didn't think people needed another conference, to be honest. I thought, why Microsoft was going virtual. There's so many virtual events. I assumed for sure there'd be a virtual event overload, and just jokingly thought, wouldn't it be interesting if a group of nerds got together and did a little like Comic-Con, DynamicsCon thing? And it kind of ballooned from there. But you're right. Once I saw that there was some traction, and especially once we agreed to take a sponsor dollar, I mean, if it was something we were just going to do for fun, that's one thing. But when you're saying, okay, sponsors are going to help us so we can do it better and more professionally, and hire Rich and Molly and Liz and do things to really provide a better community feel, then there's another obligation of quality. And then you start thinking through, okay, what kind of org do you want to build, and what kind of org do you want to be? And I think Jason hit the nail on the head. I mean, there's the planning committee has no knowledge that isn't actively on Twitter. I mean, the point being that it isn't some company being run to better itself through and only show you a certain lens. I mean, we welcome feedback and comments on how we're doing, what does the community need, and how can we do better. I mean, even the voting. So, like you said, I think we're the voting's pretty much done, and we're working on finalizing the agenda right now. And some people are saying, voting has been a popularity contest, but I don't know a better way. I mean, if there is a better way, the community can call me, or we can set up a call and talk about it. Because if there is a better way, I want to do that. I know that a lot of people thought that all the MVPs would just flex their network. But that hasn't happened. We're seeing a lot of non-MVPs get interesting sessions submitted and voted for. And then additionally, we've also really made a big push this year to focus on fresh faces and look for ways to increase our diversity and inclusion, goals. So that way the event does look a little bit different than maybe some of the other ones that happen throughout the year. So I'm really proud to see that happening. I mean, the agenda is going to be packed full of people that I never even knew were in the space, and I love that. And the ideas that they have and ways they're going to present are going to be very fresh and new, and hopefully make for a really engaging conference for the audience.
The decision, or I guess the debate, or the work that's gone into trying to figure out a good selection process really speaks to how challenging that is just in general, because I really agree with you. Starting with an open voting approach is a great first step. And I think what it also shows, though, because there are people with concerns and complaints and whatever, is that it's impossible to make everybody happy. It just is. Yeah. But B, it is a complex challenge trying to find something like selection of sessions that's both open and sort of equitable, but also not a free-for-all. Because I think as you've talked about, and I think as other people have raised, it's probably like the end solution might be, open voting and popular voting, but with some some framework around it, or some limitations or rules to enforce sort of the ideals of sort of what you want the event to be overall. So I sort of see, I imagine that'll probably evolve to some extent over time.
I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. The first guardrail we put up, you only get one session. So you might be the most popular person in the world, and you put your network out there to come vote for you, and they give you you get 18 votes. So you have 10,000 followers because you're super popular. You're Jason Gumpert and you're a super popular guy out on the social medias, and you say, come vote for my session. And you may get your vote in, but you only get one session, so people have to spend those votes somewhere else. So we hope that even if you are, some of the popular folks may have an advantage, but they're only going to get on once.
Another
Go ahead.
Another good example is the push for new voices and because you have put some priority on making sure that newcomers to the space, as you've sort of defined it, people who don't have a really established presence in the on the conference circuit or whatever, are being welcomed. And I think that message got out fairly well, because it seems like quite a lot of the sessions listed do come from people who are identified as new presenters.
And without any intervention, we're averaging 20. We set a goal of 25% of sessions. Right now, if the votes at close, we're at 26% without intervening. So it shows that new people can come into an established space with a fresh idea, and the community wants to hear from it. I think about my time when I was a user and getting introduced to the user group, and I got invited to speak, and I was nervous and didn't think, why would I need to speak? What message would I have that these other MVPs and smart folks who've been doing this much longer than I had been at the time, what could I possibly have to share? But it turned out that perspective, just what I had to share, was interesting to some people. It wasn't necessarily my deep knowledge or my experience with AX 2.5 or something, but it was just I had a perspective and an experience. And it turned out my perspective and experience resonated with a bunch of people. So yeah, I got kind of put on a speaking circuit a bit with day one at Convergence and other user group things. But where's that next line of people today that have had those experiences, that are net new to our community and can come and share and be the kind of future ones that are going to start, next, I don't know, DynamicsCon TikTok, or I don't know what the next iteration of what our community builds, but there's no shortage of ideas and energy, and so trying to help provide a place for that, I think, is really, really important. I think that's really, really fundamental. And I haven't announced it yet, but we are working on a mentorship program for those new speakers. Once we have the agenda completely finalized, we'll team them up each with, a regular community presenter to help mentor them and guide them. And we've also, we're looking at some speaking and training and services that, through the Dale Carnegie Institute, to help with people making more dynamic virtual presentations if they're not used to that. So it could even be a way to skill up in and of itself by putting the event on, teaching people how to present better and making better content is a way to skill up in and of itself.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I was also thinking of, looking through the submissions. There's definitely a lot of names that I recognize there across the different tracks. But like you said, quite a few new people. And I think it would be great if DynamicsCon sort of took on that role of sort of fostering new voices, new talent, because if you look across, sort of like you said, I mean, there are other virtual events that have sprung up in all sorts of forms in the last year at this point. Everything from just like totally MVP driven sort of team sessions, essentially. So fairly intricate ones, but just teams, live streams, to full blown virtual conference experiences of various sorts, from partners, from you. Some of them are very locally based, like the Power Platform Bootcamp, which is another sort of very separate sort of set of events where they're really kind of have a local theme to them. And so I think it fits in nicely, I guess, is my point.
I hope. Listen, if Microsoft swoops in tomorrow and says we own community now, great. I'll be the first one probably in line to say, how can we help? This isn't, I don't need to be running a community, but I felt there was a gap there, and said, why not help build it? But it's not an ego-driven thing from my part. I just want to see a place, like you said, an avenue for new faces to get the opportunity that I had, and a place for people to come together and have some community which is just kind of lacking right now.
And in fairness, I can say that since I forget exactly how long ago we first met, quite a few years ago at this point, but you've been talking about getting people together in some form or another since as long as I can remember. I think you might have started with really organizing like meetups, sort of in-person meetups at the local level, and trying to help push those across different cities and different locations, right?
Yeah, we have 21 now and about 2,000 people in the meetups. And we're going to find a way to fold that into DynamicsCon and Doug at large more succinctly this year. It's just, priorities kind of keep taking us away. But yeah, I think, and also, with people aren't meeting in person as much right now, but some of our meetups are still doing virtually. Our New Zealand meetup is meeting in person because they've tackled COVID better, maybe. But I think it will come back. Of course, I mean, virtual is nice, but people want to meet in person and have that kind of community feel. And I think that will come back at some point, and we'll see if we have a role in that at all. It doesn't have to be, but if there's space and people want to do that in a community that's open and transparent, then, DynamicsCon and Doug might be that place.
Yeah. Do you see a kind of do you have a plan, I guess, or a clear through line between the DynamicsCon event, Doug, Dynamics, which is the DynamicsUser.net site, essentially, right? When you say Doug, and the meetups and the sort of local events that are happening.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Mark Rhodes was just asking me this question yesterday. Hi, Mark. Yeah, absolutely, I do. It's not set in stone. I mean, I want to know what people want, and we'll adjust. It sure seems like the virtual event is desirable because of the amount of traffic and registration we're at now with DynamicsCon. But yeah, I think I can envision a world where Doug, DynamicUsers.net forum is upgraded and a little more modernized, so people can go there, ask questions, get questions answered, share information in an open, free forum setting. That website has 20 years of SEO and has a lot of great archived information, has a lot of great members already there. So I think we do a refresh there this year in between the two DynamicsCons. And then we have the forums on the website and then the virtual events. Then we fold in the meetups, which will meet probably monthly in different major cities, run by local community leaders who want to be more active and drive conversation at the local level. So I could see us having a kind of, call it a national or global DynamicsCon twice a year, and then local, more targeted discussions within each Power Platform or Dynamics product, and kind of maybe locally known groups of people in Portland or New York or London having conversations between the con, let's say. And there, I would hope content that didn't make it to the DynamicsCon could be funneled to the local chapters for content to be presented virtually, or maybe 2 or 3 chapters come together and watch the same content for a while and then go back to their respective user group for local discussion or something. I think that could be really interesting. And then I think, I still think there's something to do with training. I think there's something more needed in the training space. I think there's also something more needed in the kind of recruiting and job placement space. And I think there could be a need for a kind of a neutral third party to help coordinate that and match those up. But those are also a little bit third rail things that, Microsoft wants to own training a lot. There's also some other great companies that are doing it, and recruiting is just kind of this dark web kind of thing in a way. Most people don't have a positive experience with recruitment. So we'll see. But yes, I think ultimately the vision is to kind of build a full-fledged user group that includes local meetups, possibly in-person meeting when it makes sense, regularly scheduled global conferences, and online forum and community all in one.
Yeah, what are you getting from Microsoft these days, either directly or just sensing in terms of their community plans? I see, the online presence of their community site. I see their virtual events that are just Microsoft people sort of presenting product updates, and then there's the the big tentpole Microsoft events, the Build, Ignite,
Yeah.
Inspire. But I don't know. Do you see anything else going on?
Yeah, I
On
see a
that
lot.
side?
I'm very curious, and what is Microsoft? I think is the first question, because Microsoft engineering team has a purpose for engaging with the user community. They have a budget to sponsor events. They can put on their own events. The Microsoft marketing team, the Microsoft partner teams, these are all the Microsoft sales teams. These are major departments that don't always talk well to each other. Is the first thing I found, is that when we say, is Microsoft sponsoring our event, or is Microsoft, what does Microsoft want to do with community? There is a lot of Microsofts that seem to have some competing thoughts about how and their role in engaging with community. Ultimately, I've been watching what's happening with SQL Pass and some other business applications, third-party run user communities, and how that's going, and what the community expects and what Microsoft's willing to do. And it just certainly seems like, and I could be wrong, I'm always wrong, but it sort of seems like Microsoft would prefer to let someone else run community for them. I don't get a sense that they want to swoop in and just take it over completely. They do things that are community-esque, and they have community leaders. They are concerned about their community. They have folks dedicated with driving user adoption and community full-time and people, but they also seem to also enjoy the benefits of having a third party, kind of a little bit of an independent body, organizing and pushing and collaborating with the users as well. So we plan to have a very collaborative relationship with Microsoft. DynamicsCon and Doug goes back, and a lot of our folks know a lot of the folks at Microsoft. We're in talks with them about how we can partner more closely, and offer them more benefit and access to their users, and give users more influence and decisions and access to engineering and stuff like that with Microsoft. But it is a little bit TBD, I think, and a little bit up in the air. The seismic shifts in our community right now for Dynamics specifically is leaving some people wondering kind of where this all lands. But alternatively, I think when you look at Power Platform, which is like sister products to the Dynamics products, they seem to be able to be a little more self-sufficient with community leaders at Microsoft, and have a little bit better foothold. And I know the Power BI community run by Microsoft is really strong, and a really good one. And so maybe there's a hybrid approach. I'm not sure. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I do wonder, and maybe sort of I've been getting a sort of non-evidence-based sense, more of a feeling, I guess, that that the Power Platform and the business apps, the Dynamics apps, really are starting to run on parallel tracks here. I mean, I know that technically they very much, Dynamics really, fits in pretty specific ways with Power Platform, and that's fine. But when it comes to how they're marketed, the people running them, sort of like you said, the bit of the spirit of them, perhaps, they're not the same. And I think also that filters down to the user and consulting partner professional side of it. You look at the people who are really active in Power Platform, there's some overlap with Dynamics, but it's certainly not all overlap. And there's some people who work on Power Platform products, Power BI especially, but also the others, that never give a second thought to Dynamics. And that's definitely going to shape that community in a very different way than say, what people who come out of the dynamic space from, a decade or more, different from how they think about things.
Yeah,
So,
you're right. That's a good point. Maybe Microsoft considers the Power Platform more citizen developer-y, and they need to invest in John and Donna and others there to drive community a bit more than they feel like Dynamics might be more of a professional product that gets implemented with a services firm or a gold partner type of thing. So yeah, it could very well be that they're similar but parallel but slightly divergent tracks for community for the two of them. SQL, I don't know, Office and SQL communities are huge, and kind of all over the place. And so it'll be interesting to see like kind of what all of this shakes out, and we would love, a clearer guidance on exactly what Microsoft plans to do. I think everyone would. So we just are kind of waiting in the wings a bit. And while we wait, we'll build what we think the community wants, which is a kick-ass conference here in February or in March, if we can.
Yeah, no question. I think it also comes down to a question of who sort of moves the products forward in the field. I think with like Dynamics, it's largely as partners move things forward. Almost you can't do a lot of work with these products without a company like yours, like Dynamic Consulting and all the other members of the partner channel. Whereas Power Platform, yes, partners get involved. I'm sure your organization does work with Power Platform's tools, but there's this sort of, I guess, sort of non-partner spirit to it as well. When you're talking about citizen developers, you're not talking about partners developing solutions for you. It certainly can work that way, but that just changes the whole.
On there, yeah. And even though CE platform or Dynamics 365 CRM and Power Platform are the same things in a lot of ways, but you're right, they're definitely different in a lot of ways too. That's actually pretty insightful. I think that time will tell, I think. But also, Microsoft, if the community comes together and supports a virtual conference like this or Scottish Summit or whatever, Microsoft, it's not an or for them. It seems like an and.
Right.
They're welcoming. If we want to put energy into organizing a community, great, they're there for it. They've been very supportive. So I think that's a good thing about them. They're kind of let community blossom where it may. And I think that's the beauty of this, is that, really trying to not centralize what community has to be for our users, and really let it kind of evolve and develop to what we think people want. We're testing a bit, and we're going to get it wrong at times possibly, but we're trying hard to listen. Believe it or not, we are really trying hard to listen. And just because we did DynamicsCon Spring one way, we can do fall another way, or only do one a year, or do 3 a year, or something. I mean, there's a million more ways to improve, but we're just trying to try to do something, and not waste another year where we can't go in person and no one's really stepping up and doing virtual very well. I just hate to waste all this time.
Well, you have made some changes for this spring's event, right? Can you talk a little bit about what's going to be different for the attendee experience?
Yeah, exactly. We added a day, so instead of 2 days, we're 3. We aren't doing a technical versus functional dedicated track. It's kind of intermingled. We'll see how the agenda completely lays out. But, there were a lot of sessions that were both kind of, it was hard to figure out what is functional and technical sometimes. So we're not segmenting by that this time. We've added Dynamics GP. So we have a 5th track. So that'll be a bit different. We intend to, and it's not finalized yet, but we intend to have the session run live during US hours and then replay again for European time and Eurasia time, kind of maybe 12 hours phased. So that way not everyone has to stay up late or get up early if they want to catch a session. So we're adjusting a few parameters like that. We have also really pushed hard at inviting people from other countries and inviting people from other languages that I don't see on stage enough to our event. So diversity, inclusion, and accessibility is a huge kind of cornerstone topic that we will have some more announcements about soon. About the keynote, I think will be really, really interesting and relevant for us in 2021. But primarily, probably one of the biggest changes is, we are enforcing 25% of the entire conference must be what we call a fresh face, meaning, you're kind of less known on the circuit. I don't know what the exact rule is. You haven't done or have only done one presentation in the last couple of years, or something effectively where you're just not on stage all the time. That has allowed us to kind of look for new talent and support new talent. So I do hope and I know we will achieve that. We may even exceed that number a bit, and provide kind of a good mix of a conference of people you're used to reading their blog posts and their tweets, but then a group of people that you're not seeing all the time getting on stage and getting their opinion heard.
Yeah, one of my working theories related to what you just said about, I guess, the ecosystem in general, even broader than Microsoft or Microsoft Business Apps is, I think in-person conferences will come back to some extent because I think people just want to go to them. They sort of build that into their sort of working life to some extent if they have that privilege and that opportunity, generally speaking. But what the last year has shown me, at least, is, and I think a lot of other people, is how much more accessible these virtual events can be. I mean, you look at numbers for Microsoft's like transition of their traditional, like I said, those tentpole in-person conferences that they do at a worldwide level, and you look at the number of people who are attending them virtually, it's 10x. I forget the exact numbers, but it's many times more people getting into those sessions and getting access to those presenters than they ever would have, if it was just in an Orlando conference hall. And there's that's a real change, and I don't think that you can, in good conscience, take that away completely. If you're Microsoft, I don't think there's any sign that an event like what you're organizing would ever go away just because in-person events are back. I think something has fundamentally changed there. And like you said, I mean, the fact that new people are stepping up to present, the fact that people who don't go to these in-person events are showing up a second time around and probably a third time around. So, I mean, that to me is a sign that there's it's not just a substitute. I mean, yes, there's strengths to both, but virtual provides something that, especially in the sort of, as people get more exposed to others around the world, which I think really is happening. It's something that I'm certainly a big believer in, learning about how business is done in other places, who these people are who have developed their skills in countries other than the one that I live in. I mean, that can't, I don't think you can put that back in the bottle, so to speak.
I agree 100% with you, Jason. I'm very curious to see how this pans out. I certainly have a pony that I'm betting on in a way. I do think virtual isn't just a fad and just a replacement. I think it was, virtual conferences were horrible. I remember before the pandemic and everything. I mean, you really struggled with caring or being present or setting the time aside. Now, I don't know. I attend them now differently. I know that I'm not going to an in-person one too, so I have to get the most out of this virtual one. And I see the attendance there, like you said. I see the attendance globally, and I see the way people are presenting virtually. Like you said, Microsoft Inspire had, I forget the number, 25,000 active. Was it more than that? I mean, huge numbers of people.
I thought it was north of 100,000.
There you go. I mean, it was some shocking.
At least for Build and Ignite. I'm not sure about Inspire. Right.
And Ignite also, I saw a little bit of the planning of Ignite, and they're doing it differently. It's not just like we're going to do an in-person conference and then record it, which they were kind of doing before. And then you can pop on the stream if you want, but they're really thinking about how people attend these conferences. I think there could be something to maybe having a 5-day virtual conference that runs a few hours each day or something. I don't know. I mean, with virtual, there's so many more ways to structure it to allow people to kind of participate. And it doesn't have to be just because we went in person for 3 days straight that we need to be virtual for 3 days straight. But I think you're right. I don't think you come back from it that much. And Microsoft's saying they're going to, June 2022 is before they're even willing to consider going back to some of these in-person tentpole events. And by that time, if you do another year and a half, will people be so conditioned and used to content virtually like this and conferencing virtually like this that I can't imagine it really going completely back. That to say, of course, I mean, in-person events, and there's a intangible piece to that you have to get back. I also think, a lot of our customers that used to send people to the big in-person community event each year, you go 2 years of not paying for that. I think it's tough to ask the Dynamics and Power Platform customers to swing all the way back to in person right away. I think people are gonna not want to spend their vacation time or travel time as much, and I think it'll be a lot slower to rebuild than there'll be that core group that just has to get out of the house, that misses being on the road or whatever. But I don't think it rebounds nearly as quickly as it could, just because of pandemic reasons.
Yeah, we'll have to see, but I tend to agree with you. I don't think it'll be exactly the same afterwards. At the same time that you're putting a lot of effort into this, you mentioned you have a team now. I think that's one of the other changes since the last DynamicsCon. You had maybe one resource sort of helping organize it. Now you have at least 3, right?
Yep. I think, there are lots of people putting events on and doing it kind of part-time. And, my day job is being a Microsoft partner, and I want to volunteer and help in community as much as I can. But if I did this part-time, it would feel very part-time, probably wouldn't get done. And yeah, Molly did join us and help lead DynamicsCon 1. We added Liz and Rich, if you know them from the community. We added them. Liz kind of joined us about a month or two before DynamicsCon 1 launched, and then Rich late last year joined. So now we have 3 full-time people kind of leading the charge with DynamicsCon and the other programs that we're trying to build and hope to announce and launch soon. So it's night and day different from trying to do it, building meetups in your spare time like I was in 2018 or 19 or something, versus having people who are experienced professionals doing this as their 9 to 5. I think that's the point. And I know that costs money then, so we have to have some sponsors help cover the costs. But the idea being then, hopefully it's a higher quality. There's a line there, though. I don't think we go to 100 full-time people. I don't think it needs to be that. I think a few full-time caring professionals can kind of do this work in this space and provide some really awesome programs for the community at break even. I think the goal is then to share those financials and be open about those programs and what's going on, so that way the community knows kind of where the money's going and understand, yes, there is some money being raised in the event. It's going to pay for people to make sure this stuff gets done and gets done well, and not just like me answering emails at night or something terrible, And you can see it. I mean, you can see the quality is just bar none. We've also got, a really great technical team that does the recording and audio and visual work. We've got a great marketing team that's working on the website as fast as possible and other marketing initiatives, and trying to help people get session cards out for them to share with their community, or swag, or so we can give swag out to attendees and stuff, and try to do fun things and that wouldn't get done if it was just me and Jake kind of working at night. So.
And when it comes to, like you said, sort of running your own business at the same time, are you seeing any sort of parallels in terms of, I don't know, focus areas or places where your clients are most interested in either expanding their solutions, or maybe just where business is best these days? I know you've added an SMB practice over the last, 2-3 years, if I have that right. I'm sure you do. I know you've done some cool stuff, and this is actually something I wanted to catch up with you on. Also, is around AR and Hololens. I know your team's put in some interesting work there. I don't know, anything else that sort of parallels the community efforts?
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, Joel Leichte joined to run our power practice, MVP in the space, and Joel has done some really cool things and working with our customers really well. But you make a point there about the way you engage with a customer for a dynamic solution versus a power platform solution is different. And that power platform customer may want free training and conferences and try it first themselves, and then come to you when they get stuck. And so, it is interesting, the things you're talking about, and we're talking about community, and the way community might serve Power Platform users versus Dynamics users could be different, because their approach to implementing is different, and their desire to buy professional services is different. So, yeah, we certainly see some trends in the market changing. The SMB space, Business Central has just exploded because you have all of the kind of nav converts, but you've just opened up a lower end market to Dynamics that people can now grow into a Dynamics ERP system like they could with GP, but that's truly cloud and really easy to scale. And so, as we've seen the growth in BC, it seems very evident that that's where the most sessions are and the most votes are also for DynamicsCon, because it's just very, very popular, very, very high interest in Business Central right now, which is impressive. I don't think I would have guessed that a year ago. Business Central, I was curious how Business Central was going to work out for Microsoft and what their business model was. Go into Directions. I think, Jason, you and I sat outside Directions in Vegas one time and opined upon the future of Business Central and how it fits in the market place and in the space. But it really seems to really have caught hold, and we see that in our business and in the community space for sure. Yeah, mixed reality. Yeah, it'd be interesting. People are still. I think that's also our customers are trying it out. It seems like there are AR and MR, augmented reality, mixed reality, and AI, artificial intelligence kind of topics around Dynamics suggested for the conference. We dabble in it, but with HoloLens 2, if I could find a good way to present it, I think it would make an amazing session, because HoloLens 2 is just a whole nother game changer. I mean, when you put it on, it's just self-evident how it could make your job in a field service application or remote assist application or guides application just so much easier. So I don't know how to show it very well. It's tough to wear a pair of goggles and then tell people, no, trust me, guys, this is cool. It's very hard. I mean, there are ways you can show what you're seeing, but it still doesn't kind of encapsulate the feeling that you were integrated with the hardware and the data overlaid. So got to find a way to present that.
Okay, yeah, I think one of the most promising things I've seen with HoloLens and with the D365 mixed reality apps that go with it is just some of the very vanilla sort of customer wins that Microsoft has published about, where they have deployed just some of these pre-built solutions that work with it. There was one recently with Mercedes-Benz of the US, I think, in all of their dealership service bays. There was another one recently with I'm blanking on who it was, but just I think some very straightforward
Polaris, yeah.
Who was that?
Polaris, yeah, for
okay,
yeah, and Tyson Krupp, the elevator company. I agree with you. I mean, but what's interesting is sometimes you read a Microsoft case study and you're like, yeah, sure, somebody custom built something that works great for them, but that wouldn't really work. And I think you're right. I mean, you literally, anybody can sit down and build out a guide and then hand it to a technician, and it's very easy to deploy, and very, very easy for user adoption. And it's not a huge custom endeavor to then make it look like it works super slick. It works very, very well. And I think the adoption we're seeing with our customers is kind of like, yeah, right, it can't work that well. And then they're buying it and trying it in proof of concepts. And they're like, oh yeah, this works perfectly. This cut us down a bunch of travel time, or this increased our support cycle or something like that. So they're like, well, where can we get 20 of them? So definitely the world seems more ready than ever for HoloLens and mixed reality. And to your point, HoloLens 1 was kind of an idea. There wasn't really any mainline apps that Microsoft had. They were kind of shipping a development kit, and then trusting partners would kind of build their own apps. But now it's not the case. I mean, these Dynamics 365 apps work natively with HoloLens, and you can sell them and deploy them very, very easily.
Yeah. The other one I was thinking of that we recently covered a little bit was a pharma packaging operation who's using, I think, remote assist in a sort of an interesting way to sort of do quality compliance stuff with their clients, which is interesting. And then there was what Peterbilt, or the company that owns Peterbilt, I think it was they were maybe more of a high profile customer of Microsoft's. But anyway, I think these, just like taking these standard solutions and using them, I think that's going to it might be a long time to actually see that really large scale traction, but I have to think that that's going to catch on more and more.
I don't think so. I don't think it's like, Star Trek technology. I mean, we demoed HoloLens for a couple customers in Chicago, and one of the largest medical device and pharma manufacturers in the world has a very big operation in Chicago, and they said, "Oh, we need this now for when they change the medicine, when they're running a certain line, Excedrin or whatever on a line, and they need to switch it over. There's a 80-point inspection check to make sure that it's completely not, that it's there's no contamination when you're switching over." And they were saying a single recall of a little bit of contamination can cost them, millions and millions of dollars, even in a small case scenario. And putting on the HoloLens, using one of the spatial anchors to anchor yourself on the machine, and then stepping through your guides of what to check, not only increased quality, but they also were able to kind of monitor how long those checkpoints took. So if it was taking too long, they knew they could go back and retrain. And if it wasn't taking long enough to do the check, then they thought maybe they also need to retrain and see what happened there. So the data that it produces was like an extra QA check that they were doing the quality control for cutover appropriately, and has like drastically improved their downtime and their quality checks. And today, I mean, right now happening. So it's very cool that it's not like, well, that would be a great idea someday. It's like, no, we can deploy this now using standard guides.
Right. Using the standard product to do these things. And I think the more people can learn about these types of stories, either directly from these companies or, to some extent from the partners who are helping make it happen for them, I think that's always the kind of thing that's benefited the community. So, the
now
more
I
that
do a DynamicsCon session about it. You got me, my head spinning. So
yeah, I tried. I actually have been very. I think I've been pretty good about trying to put some coverage on pretty much all the mixed reality stuff that's come out of the business apps group. Then there's a whole other segment of it. Like I was just did a tiny bit of coverage yesterday on sort of a third party ISV that is just doing their own mixed reality stuff inside of hosted on Azure. So it's, sort of their own, other mixed reality kind of showing up there.
Yeah, we're a mixed reality partner. I've seen a lot of that. I was at the Mixed Reality Partner Summit or something the day before Inspire back in the olden time when we'd meet together. And it was a lot of those. It was a lot of partners that were building, like, they wanted to give a mixed reality experience to reading a children's book, or they wanted to build a solution for disabled veterans or something. All these great ideas, but they required that ISV to really build the entire use case, build all the software, sell it. I mean, do everything. And it was a tough sell to develop the market, build the product, and match the two together. And here, these are, Dynamics 365 field service or F&O customers that are already using, the products, and just this is kind of an easy add-on, and it doesn't seem like it takes nearly as much work. And so that lowers the bar of entry and allows a lot more customers to come in and try them out.
All right. Well, maybe something to certainly keep our eyes on. Anything else you wanted to call out to people who are thinking about attending the March event, or anything else worth noting that might be new, exciting, and different? I know you mentioned possibly some swag. I assume there's going to be, and there's a different sort of expo experience this time too, right? Ability to meet with exhibitors compared to last time.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. There will be some sessions that will be hosted by partners that will kind of have a paid expo session in a way. The platform that we use to have the conference and chat, we've upgraded, and you'll have a better experience there. So the best thing to do would, go to dynamicscon.com and register, and then you'll be told kind of what your next steps are. The agenda should be published soon, so you have an idea of kind of exactly the content and what's coming up. But generally, I'm just excited to hear what people think and if it's what they want, and to provide feedback, either to wherever this podcast gets posted or one of our social channels, just to understand how can we do it better. As we wrap up DynamicsCon this spring, we'll be starting planning in the fall, and we can pivot and change. But I do think it probably fundamentally remains something that's very open and transparent, including probably an open forum voting kind of process like we have. I know there's some folks that are kind of frustrated about that, but I also feel like I just don't know that there's a much better way that we can do it where it's still open, and I think the results kind of speak for themselves. I know people are frustrated because we do have 463 sessions, and only 60, 70 of them I think are going to get onto the dais, but so that's unfortunate. The majority of people won't probably make the conference agenda, and that doesn't mean that we don't like them or they're not awesome at what they do or they don't have a great topic. It's just it's hard to cram all that content in. I mean, how many days can you do and not just overload someone? So we do have the YouTube channel where we can overflow some content, or the meetups, I guess, but it doesn't seem that the YouTube channel, we didn't see as much traction in the YouTube channel as I thought there would be. And it seems also because the content wants to get out there now. And in 3 more months, there's new stuff that people want to talk about. The pace of change of Microsoft and Dynamics is just so fast that people don't really want to store up content and play it in 3 months. They kind of want to do new stuff then. So still haven't figured all of it out, Jason, but I guess the biggest takeaway is if you have a gripe or you want to see something changed, you are part of the community too. So come help us be better and make those changes.
This has been another episode of the MSDW podcast. My thanks once again to John Stipula for joining me today. If you haven't signed up yet for DynamicsCon, please check it out, dynamicscon.com. If you want to get in touch with me, you can reach me by email, jgumpert@msdynamicsworld.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.